All right. How's everyone doing? Good? Welcome. I've spoken 3 times, but I'm happy to see y'all again. We've got a unique format today, and I'm thrilled to be up here speaking again because we had our meet and greet here, and you got to see all the student artwork. I hope everyone had some time to go around and check it out. We had some pottery from students at Hill-Carrboro High School, as well as some drawings and paintings over there. So I hope you enjoyed that. And had some food from her chefness, which is Chef Tiffany Miller. She has been awesome. Give her a round of applause here. So again, this is our 2023 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. special event. This is the first one we've had in person in a couple years. So it's pretty amazing. I'm glad we're all back and together here today. So wanted to just welcome everyone and again, just say how proud I am of all of the different youth groups today that worked on this event. So give them a round of applause. We have some great speakers lined up today. We have some trivia. I recommend everyone trying to play because you might win something. You never know. All right. We have after that, Keith Knight. Super happy we've got him today. Civil rights historian Danita Mason-Hogans. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Of course, we have our very own Barbara Foushee, and I can't skip over, guys, I'm just getting ahead of myself here. We have a special guest, Representative Valerie Foushee, who I am not gonna, And I will let someone else introduce her shortly. And after, let's see, let me move back down to where I was. Barbara, after Barbara, we've got Nevaeh Hodge, who has been amazing this year. So I'm actually going to bring her up here in a second, but let me just say a few words about Nevaeh. She has been amazing in helping with this event and communication, going between the different youth groups, communicating with me, helping out with all the different facets of this event. So give her a big round of applause. So I'll bring her up here in a minute, and after that, we have a couple videos that were made by our youth groups, and we'll talk more about that before we jump on there. Just wanted to mention, this event is put on by our youth groups. This is their ideas, things they wanted to do. This wasn't Wesley, the town clerk, or myself putting this on. Every year we ask the youth groups to what their ideas are for this and how we can honor Dr. King. So this is their way of helping the town celebrate his legacy today. So I'm really proud of them, and this is our way for a day on of service. So without further ado, I'm going to get Nevaeh Hodges up here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nevaeh Hodge, and I'm part of the NAACP Youth Council, the Hill-Carrboro Youth Council, and the Youth Advisory Board. On behalf of all the councils, I want to welcome everyone to our celebration, and I hope you enjoy the program.
Thank you, Nevaeh. All right, so we're going to get back down to our program here, and I won't skip over any speakers now, I promise. I'm going to let our Mayor, Damon Siles, introduce our next special guest.
Mayor D. Thank you, Barbara. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see so many of you here today, back in person, as Galen said. And I just want to take a moment before I introduce our special guest to thank the members of the youth groups, first of all, and the town staff who have helped them make their vision come alive today. So please give town staff and the youth groups one more round of applause. So as Galen mentioned, we have a special guest who I'm really glad was able to make time in her schedule today. School board member, county commissioner, state house representative, state senator. And in every one of these roles, this special guest has moved from one role to the next, taking with her our priorities not just her priorities, our priorities as a community, about how to advance those priorities, even in a hostile political climate, which she is, I think, finding once again in her new role. So, and I say this every time I talk about our guest, it's never about her or her ego. It's always about her family and her friends and her community, which why I'm really especially proud that this is her first time back in Orange County at a formal event since being sworn in as a member of the United States House of Representatives. So let's all come together right now and say welcome home to Valerie Foushee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, it is my pleasure to be home. It is good to be back in the district. It's good to be back with family. It's good to be back with friends. It's good to be back where I know people care about each other and take the opportunity to work for each other, to take care of each other, and that's not to be lost on any of us. It is indeed a privilege to serve as your federal representative in Congress. And I am indeed honored to be here with you today to share in this commemoration of a great preacher, a great leader, and indeed a great American, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But I also want to add my commendations to the town of Hill-Carrboro, and for these youth groups, the Carrboro Youth Council, the Chapel Hill-Carrboro NAACP Youth Council, and the Carrboro Youth Advisory Board. I was reminded of a situation yesterday at another event of a young person who has not received the kind of recognition as adults in the civil rights movement did, but her efforts were certainly as noble, if not as notable, as the adults. That young person was Claudette Colvin. Yeah, Claudette Colvin was arrested at the age of 15 in Montgomery, Alabama, for refusing to give up her seat to a white woman on a crowded, segregated bus 9 months before the widely known incident in which Rosa Parks was reported to have done the same. And she was a plaintiff in the federal case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. Well, ultimately, the High Court ordered the city of Montgomery and the state of Alabama to end bus segregation. So I commend the young people for your efforts and your role in this struggle for peace, justice, and fairness for everyone. So we all know that Dr. King was a civil rights champion, an exponent for equality, and a paragon for peace. His enduring legacy and courageous actions spurred a movement to end racial segregation and to build a more equal America for all. But today, I would like to focus on his vision of the beloved community, a community where racism, injustice, discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice do not exist. A community where we do not focus on our individual destiny, but instead our collective and shared destiny. And as the great Dr. King said in his letter written in a jail in Birmingham, Alabama, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And in this beloved community is where real systemic change occurs, where economic and social justice are the center focus, where every person answers the mutual calling to serve each other because love prevails over everything else. And I know that it feels like our society is far from achieving Dr. King's vision for the beloved community, especially when we see racial injustices plague our cities and our towns daily, or when we see racist and xenophobic commentary online. But each year, on the third Monday in January, I am encouraged. We experience a defining moment on that day when people across the country join together to take action to serve their community and with a unified goal of social justice and equity. So let us all commit to be good stewards and work with one another to serve others and to provide a meaningful change in our communities, not only today, but each and every day. Service is a powerful action. It's an action that breaks barriers, it unites people of different backgrounds and strengthens our communities. And it is our moral obligation to build a better and a healthier society for future generations. So remembering what Dr. King said about greatness, he said that greatness and service are really connected, that anyone can be great because everyone can serve. Service can take many forms, whether you feel called into a career of public service as a teacher, a healthcare worker, a law enforcement officer, or a public official. Or even if you feel called to be a mentor, a champion for the homeless, a caretaker for the elderly, or an advocate for the food insecure, there will always, and I promise you, there will always be a way for you to serve and to make your community a better place and come one step closer to being a part of that beloved community. Thank you.
That was excellent. Thank you so much. We are going to move on to our trivia here. So hang tight one moment. Y'all get ready. All right. Okay, so I'm going to give y'all some instructions real quick on this. Has anyone heard of Kahoot? All right, several people. I had never heard of it before, and interesting names like Kahoot. Anyways, this is a trivia software. So if you have smartphones, which many of us do, we're going to put a code up here, and you're going to enter it on your phone, and you'll be a participant in the trivia. So I'm going to request some help from one of my youth council members here to help me get this going. Anyone, any volunteers? There we go. I feel like I'm losing track of technology these days. So, you know what? Just so y'all can't cheat, here's what we're going to do. There we go. All right. Now, I knew you. All right. So. All right, we're going to give you all some more time to sign in. All right, now when we have a winner, Dog Mom, you're going to need to tell me who Dog Mom is, all right? Oh, wonderful. All right. Now, so we're going to have true or false, and it'll have basically sometimes 4 different answers you can pick, all right? So there'll be a 20-second time limit once we get going, so. All right, we still got some. Yep, yes, you got it. Oh, perfect, okay, all right. All right, anyone need any more time? A little more time, all right, you got it. Not a problem. All right, y'all have been really creative with these names. This is nice. I'm liking it. All right, everyone in? All right, I'm waiting. Not a problem. All right, everyone good? Yeah? All right. There we go. All right, here we go. I had our timer set for 20, but we were at 60, so I'm gonna end this pretty soon. All right. Any more? Okay. 13, 12. All right, here we go. Next question. All right. 15. Moving on. Ampersand, all right. 984. All right, here we go. True or false? Oh, we're good. All right. All right. I think, wonderful. False. All right. Next question. Wow. All right, here we go. Y'all ready? We got a few more answers coming in. All right. 31. 31 got it right. All right, let's see the tally here. All right. Means that is a streak. 3 correct. All right, here we go. Y'all were quick on this one. I saw some quick answers on that. Let's see if y'all got it right. All right, here we go. All right. All right, next one. Here we go. It was Morehouse College. All right. What church did Martin Luther King Jr. serve as a pastor? Got 10 seconds left. Three seconds. Oh. See, we turned up the speed on y'all. All right, we're going to the next one. See our leaderboard here. Who's up top? Dog Mom's on the way. All right. Here we go. How many children did Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. have? All right, y'all are a little quicker on this one. 3 seconds left. All right. All right, let's see your tally. Hey, all right. All right, next question. What grades did Martin Luther King Jr. skip? Ninth and 12th grade. All right, leaderboard, where are we? All right, here we go. Next question. All right, got the Montgomery bus boycott. Second to last question. Here's our scoreboard. Trajan's up top. All right. Next question. On April 4th, 1967, while in New York City, King delivered a speech titled 15 seconds. Beyond Vietnam. That's all right. We got another question. let's check our scoreboard here. All right. All right, this is our last question. Y'all ready? All right, here we go. This is a tough one. Five seconds left. Seventeen is the answer. All right, I'm gonna give you let's see who our winners are here. Podium. Peanuts Gallery, I'm assuming. All right, we have our winners. Trajan, congrats. Let's have our three winners come up here. All right, our first place winner. We have, how do you pronounce your name? Trajan. Congrats. We have a Mama Dips cooking book. And a $25 gift card to Mama Dips. Second place, who do we have? Anaya, congrats. Good job, y'all. There's a $25 gift card to Mama Dips. Third place, who do we have?
Diane.
Diane!
Yes.
Well, congrats! Here you go. The librarian. All right, that makes sense to me. So,
Thank you.
and yes, thank you. Thanks everyone for participating. That was fun. So, I don't know how if y'all know how Kahoot works, but you get extra points if you do it fast. So, some of y'all were quick with it, and you got more points. So, well done. All right. So, now, I lost my program, but I think we have Keith Knight coming up next. So, I'm going to introduce Keith here. We've got in contact with him through a friend, and we are so fortunate to have you here today. And he's had some cartoons that I really enjoy, and I've enjoyed looking at a bunch on the internet. But please come up here and introduce yourself to everyone. Thanks, Keith. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I am an extremely famous cartoonist with like one person here. But the rest of you, you know, if you know my work, then you're on somebody's naughty list. That's what I like to say. But I'm just gonna, you know, so many people who speak about Martin Luther King, like there are so many amazing anecdotes and commentary on it. And I'd like to approach it from a different perspective as a cartoonist. So what I'm gonna do is run through my comic strips. I'm in an awkward situation because generally I have a laptop in front of me, so I know what's coming, but I don't. So I'm just gonna make it up as I go along, but I'm gonna read along my comic strips. So what I do is autobiographical comic strips. I take stuff from my life and I put it on paper. And this is one of my most popular ones. Oh, it's not working. Left one. Huh, it does work. This is dedicated to that one black kid, The K Chronicles by Keith Knight. This is dedicated to that one black kid who lives in that tiny-ass town off the highway in the middle of nowhere. This is dedicated to that one black kid who was not into hip-hop in high school. Black Sabbath's not black, you know. This is dedicated to that one black kid who gets used as the reason why someone isn't a racist. I can't be prejudiced. My mom invited one to my 13th birthday party. This is dedicated to that one black kid with hair people want to touch all the time. Back off. Is it like a Brillo pad? This is dedicated to that one black kid who always gets asked by white folks why they can't use the N-word. Why ask me? I don't use it, but you could if you wanted to. This is dedicated to this one black kid. So what I do is, this is one, I didn't know what a microaggression was when I drew this comic strip 20 years ago, but then someone put a name to it. I like to call this Black People Bingo because I have a print of it, and anyone who comes up on it says, oh, yep, that happened to me, that happened to me, that, and then they can do a cross to it. But that's what I like to do, is take a lot of frustration, take a lot of thought, and put it on paper. And, you know, it's something that I came to when I was a lot younger. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. And in Boston, Massachusetts, in school, I realized that, like, here's what I realized. I started doing these autobiographical cartoons in high school. And I realized the reason why I was doing it, setting my friends as the heroes in the comic strips, is all the books that I got to read in grade school up until that point, none of the protagonists were people of color. I've gotten more books where animals were the protagonists than people of color. So I felt the need to put people that looked like me in the center of the stories. And here's the thing. I never had a black teacher until I was a junior in college. And in college, I had my first black teacher was an American literature teacher. And that American literature teacher, he assigned us, oh my goodness. This is where I'm supposed to, there were supposed to be pictures here. I need to see them. Okay, I'm just gonna whiz. This is my single panel comic strip, Think. The K Chronicles is a multi-panel strip. And sometimes I come up with ideas that I can't flesh into multi-panels, so I do it into these one shots. So I'm just gonna run through these Think strips really quickly, and we'll get to that story with the writers in a moment. Your sister had the baby, it's a boy. The exact moment radical black activist Thomas X realized that, yes, indeed, he was an Uncle Tom. What was promised? 40 acres and a mule. What was got? 40 ounces and a pit bull. This just in, police have released the description of the alleged gunman who's been terrorizing the downtown area. Please don't let it be a black guy. Please don't let it be a Middle Eastern guy. Ha, they'll never catch me. It's supposed to, going back there, it's supposed to say the power of white privilege. All lives matter. Restrictions apply. See skin color for details. You know, I feel like if I could somehow see what's coming, I would be in a much better shape. So here's the last thing. The last thing you need to hear about sort of the Black lives when people say, "Oh, all lives matter." If you have a bumper sticker on the back of your car that says "Save the Rainforests," it doesn't mean screw all the other forests. It means the rainforests are getting cut down in an exorbitant way, and we need to do something about it. So that's what Black Lives Matter is. So this is, I think, the biggest issue that plagues America itself, which is we learn nothing about the true history of the United States. And we learn these fairy tales about the Pilgrims and about Christopher Columbus. And one of the things that I have a real issue with is, you know, literally slavery is so like quickly just talked about, like barely even touched upon. And then we hit Martin Luther King, and then we have a black president, and there's no racism anymore. Like that is, it's hard to describe, to put into perspective just how long slavery lasted. So if you talk about 1619 to 1865, okay, what could you build if you had centuries of free labor? What could you build if you had centuries of free labor? Okay? And so that's how long it is. And then you have Jim Crow, which is about this long. So you got this and you got this. And then you got affirmative action and a black president. This is supposed to make up for that. And we know that if you break something, it's so much easier and quicker to break something than it is to fix something. So to think that you can fix something with this much time that took this long is insane. And again, when you think about the breadth of free labor for centuries, okay? Now, I appreciate Black History Month. I appreciate it, but it's not 4 or 5 inspirational stories, okay? Black history is American history. And I never felt that comfortable speaking on sort of the slave trade in the South until I moved here 7 years ago. Because I'm a Northerner. So, and just the sort of excuses that people would say, oh, well, at least we're not the South, at least we're not the South. Now, when I go up there, which I'm going up there tonight, I make the case for the South having lower rates of unemployment for Black people, higher home ownership for Black people in the South, and, like this idea that you can excuse the racism of up the North by saying, oh, we're not the South. It's like, so like this whole country benefited from the backs of enslaved Africans, okay? So I know this is spending a long time on this, on this slide, but I just need people to understand that, when slavery ended, it wasn't like, okay, this thing that your family has been doing for centuries, we're gonna pay you now. We're gonna give you, you can use our schools, you can live here, you can do all this. That wasn't the case. I heard one interview from a former slave in the 1930s, and it's online. And he said that his owner came up to him and said, y'all are free now. He came with a rifle. Y'all are free now. Get off my land or I start killing you in 5 minutes. And so people who had nothing for generations suddenly had to go into town, find shelter, find work. They were rejected all across the way, and you building up from nothing. And so when people say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, there were no bootstraps to pull yourself up by. And people need to understand that, and we don't teach it. So I just, I meant to talk about my first Black teacher that sort of turned me down this road of enlightenment. But you got to understand how important it is to have diversity in the classroom. Because if you don't have diversity in the classroom, you learn the same standard things, and then people of color have to spend the rest of their lives catching up, learning about themselves. Oh, so here they are. Here they are. So my first black teacher was an American literature teacher, and I can't go backwards, unfortunately, but the writers he gave us were Richard Wright, Ralph Ellison, which was the picture before. Oh, yeah, Ralph Ellison, Richard Wright. Okay, it's not working again. I'm going to just point to you. You can hit it. Okay. Maya Angelou and James Baldwin. So when someone asked, like, why are you giving us all black writers? He said, I'm giving you all American writers. And that blew, my head exploded. Because we are taught that it's Walden Pond, who's the guy who does Tom Sawyer? I forgot his name. Mark Twain. American literature is Mark Twain. Like, you just, and that's ingrained into your head. So you never even think outside of that. And so, and I had in that class, I read writings from Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. It was this amazing, amazing experience. And my cartoons went from being about keg parties in college to being about what it's like to be a black man growing up in America. And these type of things it's such a powerful thing. And and so you never know where you're going to be inspired. And that was a huge thing for me. Okay, I'm hitting the wrong button all the time. So talk about inspiration. This is a comic book that got put out in the 50s. It was about the Montgomery bus boycott and about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. It was this comic book that was printed 250,000 times, and it was brought to churches, schools, community centers, all over the country. And it was that comic book that inspired a whole generation of civil rights activists. I say that because comics, to me, are such a powerful medium. Comics are essentially, cave paintings were comics, hieroglyphics were comics. And it's such a mass media, simple, easy to read. Kids, adults can read them. And one of the folks that, and I read that some of the folks who sat in Greensboro in the sit-ins were inspired by this comic book. It also inspired this young man right here. Inspired John Lewis at 19 to join the movement, this comic book. And when his assistant found out you were inspired by this comic book, why don't we do a comic book about your story? He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it. And his assistant kept on asking him. And then he finally said, I'll do it if you write it with me. And so they created March, which is this 3-book graphic novel about John Lewis's journey through the civil rights movement. And the coolest thing ever, I do Comic-Con almost every year. And the coolest thing ever was John Lewis cosplaying as his 19-year-old teenage self and leading a march through Comic-Con. This was one of the most inspiring things that I saw at Comic-Con. And I've been going there for years and years and years. And I have a copy of the March trilogy over here. And I was looking, what comes in that March trilogy is a reproduction of the 10-cent comic book in there. And I can't find it. I lost it. I'm sure I took it out to show it to my family and I just didn't put it back in. But also, John Lewis signed my book. I didn't realize John Lewis signed my book. It was really cool. It was 2013 is when he was there. And so it was a pretty amazing thing. So what I'm trying to say is comics are super inspiring. They've inspired generations of people. And I'm so excited to see the artwork that the kids have done here pursue cartooning, because it is an amazing medium. It is an inexpensive medium. All you need is a Sharpie and a piece of paper. It costs $1.19, and you can create anything. So this is the piece I did. I do prints of folks that inspire me, and that's one of my favorite ones. I'm going to whiz through this really quickly, but just to show you, can comics inspire people to do things? This is my daily strip, The Nightlife, which ran for 11 years in different newspapers. Do you think extraterrestrials are racist? Why do you ask? They never abduct people of color. It's easier to catch white people at night. So, I just want to say what I love about my readers are very intelligent. And I started getting an email after this ran. I started getting emails from people saying, "You are wrong. You are wrong." And they're not saying it's that it's not easy to catch white people at night. That it was actually a mixed race couple were the first couple to be abducted by aliens. So you can look it up. There was a black husband and a white wife, but I always say they got caught because of the white wife. Okay, so my daily strip ran in Sunday newspapers, and it ran in the Washington Post and Boston Herald and San Francisco Chronicle, San Diego Union Tribune. So this is one of my most popular, that got the most letters. Oh, can you go back again? Sorry. Vet mentoring. A guy in my unit smothered an IED, took one for the team. When I got home, I went to tell his loved ones what kind of sacrifice he made. Turns out he was gay. I was the first one to let his partner know what happened. I've shared things with soldiers that I'd never tell family and friends. War does that. Here was a guy who gave his life for his fellow soldiers, but wasn't allowed to share with us who was waiting for him back home. If we're not fighting for this soldier's freedom, then what are we fighting for? So I did this strip in response to the law that used to be in the military called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which is, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was you could be gay in the military, but you just can't tell anybody. And it's such an absurd law because it forces you to lie to people that you are entrusting your life with, and they're entrusting their life with you. And so I did this, and my strip ran in the San Diego Union Tribune. And so I started getting all these emails, and they were from military that just said, they said, "You changed my mind on Don't Ask, Don't Tell." And ideally, as a comic strip, a cartoonist, you wish you could just create something that would just change somebody's mind on something. But I got 28 emails from people saying, "You've changed my mind on Don't Ask, Don't Tell." Now, I told you that also my strip ran in Washington, D.C., the Washington Post. So this is our 44th president. And this is the Oval Office. On his table are the Sunday comics, okay? My strip ran in July of that year. In October of that year, he repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now, I'm not going to say that I had anything to do with it, but the evidence is right there in the Oval Office on the table. So, cartoons can change the world. I should end right there, but I'm going to go really quick. I made a TV show. So if you haven't seen the show, it's called Woke. People just sit there and see the name and they go, "Oh, I don't want to be preached to." And so they don't watch it, but it's actually a very funny show. Lamorne Morris from New Girl plays me, and it's about my time in San Francisco. And this is me on the set of the show. I got to write and work on the show. We shot the first season up in Vancouver, shot the second season in Atlanta. And I got to be in the show as a koala. And so I dressed that's me and my twin sister, my younger sister. They came to the set. I got to dress as a koala and punch the guy who plays me, Lamorne. And so that was very exciting. And this is me on the set in Atlanta, and we got one of the guys from The Wire, which is my favorite TV show ever, to play one of the characters' dads. And talk about Claudette Coleman. One of my favorite episodes in season 2 is Ayanna has this psychedelic experience. And it's a parody of One Night in Miami. So these historical characters show up, including Claudette. And so we had this young lady playing Claudette, and it's my favorite episode. It's really cool. And just quickly, I do slideshows on police brutality and the history of the police. And this is the firing range where police officers do target practice. How come all the targets are black? What do you mean? They're silhouettes. They're supposed to be black. I'm talking about the afro and the FUBU logo across the chest, well, I'll be. Now, this is funny, but in 2013, a woman in the National Guard wanted to do target practice, black woman in Florida. She asked the police if she could come down and shoot at targets. They said, sure, come on down. She goes down there, and in the place with the targets were giant blown up black and white photographs of young black men. And one of them was her brother as a teenager. And when the police chief was asked about it from the press, he said, it's not illegal what we're doing. And so, and then it just recently, like last year, the same thing happened in Detroit, which is like completely absurd and crazy. But again, this is another historical thing. If you know anything about the police came from the slave patrols. They were poor whites hired to keep the black population in check and chase down runaway slaves. So what police are doing now are what police have always been doing. And we're just seeing it on video now. And just to show you, people always say, oh, Martin Luther King did it great. There was no, blah, blah, blah. Like always looking back in the past, we always have this sort of fond memory of what people did. Martin Luther King was one of the most hated men in America towards the end. He was advocating for workers' rights and what people would say, stepping out of your lane. And this is one of the cartoons about the protests and all the mess that people created. We are doing the same thing. We're going through the same issues now that we were going through 60 years ago and 60 years before that. It just continues. Okay, really quick. Racism in America is like that big pile of dog poop that sits on the grass in front of your apartment building. It's been there for as long as you can remember, and nobody knows how it got there. Nobody wants it there, yet no one wants to clean it up. They say, why should I? I didn't leave it there. Oh, sorry. I messed it up. Anyway, I'm just going to kill it. You can turn it off. Okay, nobody wants it there, no one wants to clean it up. They say, why should I? I didn't leave it there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Here's the point I want to make. We have to collectively act. Racism is not just my problem, okay? Just black people's problem. It's everybody's problem. And here's the reason why. A lot of people ask me, we homeschool our kids. And I have people say, why do you live in Hill-Carrboro? Like they have higher taxes to help the school system. You don't even use the school system. I say, why wouldn't I want my tax money to go and educate people? Like why don't I want my neighbor better educated? So they don't come and like, just like, I don't know, beat me up or something. Like that's, you collectively, we are here together. So when racism exists, when you are holding somebody down, it doesn't lift you up, And there's a great quote by Toni Morrison on one of the posters over there. And a lot of people say, oh, it's the same as saying like, oh, I don't litter. My family doesn't litter. I teach my kids not to litter. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't volunteer to clean up forests or clean up beaches. It's not because we don't litter. It's just because there's a system in place that pollutes. And we have to collectively do something about it. So I would just say, on this Martin Luther King weekend, be inspired by the past. Look into the past. A lot of it is not easy. A lot of it is difficult, but it's important to do. Have the awkward conversations and listen to people. You will learn more about Black history by talking to a Black person 65 years or older. Talk to them for 10 minutes. You'll learn more about Black history than you ever learned in any school, anywhere. So thank you. So here's what I want you guys to do. Urge Carrboro to bring me back for a proper slideshow so I can stand behind here and do it the way I usually do it. But I apologize for the technical difficulties. Okay, thank you.
That was excellent. Thank you, Keith. That was profound. So, up next, we have another great speaker today lined up for you. Civil rights historian Danita Mason-Hogans. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Hey, good evening or good afternoon. I have some stuff that I want to share with you, but I must say, thank you so much. I want to say that I'm so inspired by what you said, Keith. I appreciate what you said. And part of one of the hats that I wear is working with veterans of the civil rights movement, with the student veterans from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And of course, John Lewis was a president. And I wanted to add about the importance of comics because when they went down to Mississippi to do voter rights registration, there was also a need for literacy work. So they used comic books to instruct people how to read, and they also used comic books to instruct people what the roles of people that they were voting for. So I'm a big fan of that. When you talked about the continuum of enslavement into the rights that Black folks have been denied through Jim Crow, I'm horrible at math, but I did the math, and so for 77% of our existence in this country, we have either been under enslavement or Jim Crow. So it's going to take a minute to rectify some of the things that we have experienced. And so now I want to talk about Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder is my very favorite guitarist in the world. And my husband bought us some tickets a couple of years ago to see Stevie Wonder. And he said at the beginning of his set, in his elegant Stevie Wonderous way, he said, I want you all to remember that in this space and time, we shared this moment together. And that's Stevie Wonder. I love Stevie Wonder. So I just want to thank you for having the opportunity to be before you and share this space with you today. It's important for me to express gratitude to you for that. I want to thank the members of the Hill-Carrboro Youth Council, the Hill-Carrboro Youth Advisory Board, the NAACP, and the NAACP Youth, and the town of Hill-Carrboro for having invited me to speak with you this afternoon. And it's always wonderful to share space for our next speaker, my good sister, Ms. Barbara Foushee, and wonderful town leader. For me, growing up in the Rangewood neighborhood, which is only a few miles away from here, and attending Hill-Carrboro Elementary School, Hill-Carrboro was and is as much of my home as Chapel Hill. And so I am so proud of the legacy and commitment to progression that Hill-Carrboro enjoys. Every time I see our mayor with his little dimples, his little dimpled smile, it is at some meeting or gathering to make this world a better place. And I am so proud that this town, that was once for us as Black folks here, a sundown town, has transformed into a town, which we still have work to do, but a town that's nationally known for fighting for equality and equity for all of its citizens. So when I was about 12 years old or so, I used to babysit for Hill-Carrboro's first and only Black mayor, Robert Drakeford. Mayor Drakeford passed away in May of last year, and we were preparing to do some work on some oral histories of his tenure right before he died. It was the best birthday present in the world when journalist Mike Ogle and I convened a Zoom call with some old and dear friends of his, including my father, who is here today, Braxton Foushee, and one of his closest and his greatest friends who receives far less credit than he deserves for what he has done for Carrboro, Mr. Herman Foushee. Mayor Drakeford's health was rapidly declining, but I am so grateful that he was able to tell his old friends that he loved them, and they returned the sentiment about a week and a half before he died. We are, of course, here to honor Dr. Martin Luther King, and you and I are beneficiaries of his legacy. But Dr. King died when I was less than a year old. So like many people today, I did not experience the real Dr. King, and neither would I offer to most people today. The image of Dr. King that most people know today, in my view, is a carefully crafted narrative by people in power, which deify Dr. King and diminish what he stood for, which is a shame, young people, because you would have loved him even more, and he would have loved the group of young people that we have here in Chapel Hill and Carrboro. My parents, Braxton Foushee, Herman Foushee, and young organizers, women of the movement, were able to witness the real Dr. King in April of 1960, when he heard about the high school students at Lincoln who shocked the world when they followed the example of the students at the North Carolina A&T State University and became the first sit-in. It became the first sit-in in the civil rights era to be organized, planned, and executed by high school students. Dr. King was so inspired by these young people that he planned subsequent visits here and worked with Ella Baker to make sure that they were brought under the same umbrella of other people in this country who were committed to change. I share this history, young people, because being dedicated to justice work is hard. And you need to know that it is not what we are typically presented with. Contrary to the popular narrative, showing up when the spotlight is on or the applause is loud or when people are happy to see you. Dr. King suggested that it was more complicated than that. He said, many of the people who supported us in Selma, in Birmingham, were really outraged about the extremist behavior towards Negroes, but they were not at that moment, and they are not now, committed to genuine equality for Negroes. It is much easier to integrate a lunch counter than it is to guarantee an annual income, for instance, to get rid of poverty for Negroes and for all poor people. It is much easier to integrate a bus than it is to make genuine integration a reality. Quality education, a reality in our schools, and it is much easier to integrate even a public park than it is to get rid of slums. It is important that you experience another side of Dr. King, the one who was called a communist and had to be away from his family for all of the meetings that he attended, and the one who was called names and demonized while he was here. And I don't mean to be negative. I would love to join that chorus of people who think that simply by loving people, regardless of their difference in life, is sufficient. I tell you young people, beautiful young people with a heavy but determined heart, that that is not true. Love is an action, and Dr. King understood that. Love is telling truth even when it is unpopular. Dr. King said that it saddened him when people misunderstood what he stood for because it meant that they really didn't know him, and that the separation of peace and justice is a cruel manipulation of the poor. He said that we have to confront poverty and inequity and unequal education in order to work for justice. And I work hard at justice because I agree with Dr. King when he said that America would never be free or saved from itself until the descendants of its slaves were loosed completely from the shackles they still wear. With Chapel Hill-Carrboro City Schools having the second largest achievement and therefore opportunity gap in this country, we need to assist you young, brilliant, and capable young people with the audaciousness that is rooted in knowing who you are, where you come from, and what you have to do. The road is not easy, but I didn't come here to waste your time either, or to lie to you. You are beautiful young people. And as Dr. King said, I want you to root yourselves in the notion of somebodyness. Working for justice often means working against a power structure for whom you will never be good enough. You can speak the truth and serve your community like so many Black women in the movement in Chapel Hill and Hill-Carrboro, and even make it to Congress. And people will call you aggressive and disrespect your service and your experience. You can talk about poverty and equality like John Lewis and our very own Chapel Hill 9, and people will call you thugs and troublemakers. You can make it to president, and people will question your citizenry. You can make it to the Supreme Court, and people who did not even graduate from high school will ask to see your grades. And finally, you can be a great superintendent who champions equity, and people will try to apply unequal scrutiny to invalidate your position. But here's the good news, beautiful young people. Ignore the haters and keep moving forward. Y'all are ready for this day. You young people possess your own power, and young people have always been the greatest advocate for change, and you are no different. It was young people who showed Dr. King the writings of Gandhi and led him to a path of nonviolence. It was young people who exposed the country to the realities of the Jim Crow South and made it possible to pass the Voting Rights Act. It was young people who hit the streets until this country listened about the realities of racism, and our towns were led by the NAACP youth who held the biggest rally in Chapel Hill and Hill-Carrboro's history during a pandemic. It was the Black and Brown Student Coalition who didn't give up on the issue of unequal education in the Chapel Hill Hill-Carrboro city schools, and it was the James Cates Scholars who helped to document the history of James Cates and contributed to the call for the Justice Department to reopen the case 50 years after a young Braxton Foushee made the same call. You are ready to take on these same issues that Dr. King fought for. You just need us older folks to listen to you and support your leadership. This is why when my little cousin, Nevaeh Hodge, called me, or whatever young people called, I'm there. And so I will leave you as I began with gratitude and with a call to action. And this is from a poem that Dr. King used to like to quote all the time by Langston Hughes. Oh yes, I'll say it plain. America was never America to me. And yet I swear by this oath, America will be. The future is yours, young people. Go get it and make it what you want it to be. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Danita. That was excellent. We really appreciate you speaking. So I'm going to have our mayor come up to introduce our next guest speaker today, Mayor Damon Siles.
Thank you, Galen. I'm very pleased, first of all, to acknowledge some other folks who are here with us today, and really glad that my colleagues, Councilmember Foushee, but as well as Councilmember Susan Romaine, Councilmember Eleazar Posada was here earlier, Orange County Commissioner Anna Richards is here, I believe, still. And there she is. Thank you for being here. I'm really pleased to be able to share with you some time with one of my colleagues who has been looking forward to this day, I know very much, and some time to speak with our young people. Barbara has been on the town council since 2017 and was reelected in 2021, if I have my math right, and today serves as a member of the Hill-Carrboro Town Council along with our other colleagues. Barbara, welcome. Thank you for being here today. Please welcome Councilmember Barbara Foushee. You've also heard, you keep hearing the Foushee name a lot today. That's not an accident. And before Barbara starts her remarks, I just want to acknowledge, again, Braxton Foushee, who you've heard quite a bit about today. Braxton was, yeah, let's hear it for Braxton. In addition to the experiences you heard Danita Mason-Hogans talk about in the movement, Braxton was the first Black elected official in the town of Hill-Carrboro. And I certainly, and I know many of my colleagues and many of my predecessors on the town council have looked to Braxton for not only inspiration, but also his wisdom and experience in local politics and in the movement here in Hill-Carrboro and Chapel Hill. So Braxton, thank you for being here today. Barbara.
Good afternoon. Happy Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. Let's put some respect on that. Dr. King was a civil rights icon, a Baptist minister, and a man of the people, all people. I just want to take a moment to thank Congresswoman Valerie P. Foushee, who I think had to leave, for her comments. And we just continue to look forward to her exemplary leadership in the U.S. Congress. I want to also thank Mr. Keith Knight for his inspiring words. He's masterful, and he's a creative artist. Mrs. Danita Mason-Hogans, thank you for continuing to shine the light on history, forgotten history, and creating new ways to bring history forward into the community. Thank you. So Mayor Stiles has, I believe, recognized all of our colleagues and other elected officials that are in the space this afternoon. So I will move on. I did want to shout out my pastor, Reverend Rodney Coleman, and his lovely wife, Crystal Coleman. And I do that because those two together and their prayers and counsel keep me grounded, and I just love them. Those of you that know Barbara Foushee know that I love the colors of royal blue and pure white. I am a longtime member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and our organization will celebrate 103 years of existence on Monday, January the 16th. I do believe that I have some sorors in attendance. Please make some noise or stand. I see Dr. Holman in the back, I believe. Diane Black, Sarah Mangum, they kind of, they're around when I need them. Sarah Wilson, and so thank you so much for coming today. I also would like to recognize the women of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated as they celebrated their Founders Day on yesterday, as well as the women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, who will celebrate their Founders Day on tomorrow. And I do this because these historically Black Greek letter organizations have a storied history of service and humanitarian efforts. And to connect the dots even further, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as well as my own pastor, Reverend Coleman, are members of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And so I do want to bring some recognition to these organizations in America's history. Our young people continue to do an amazing job with the planning and execution of this annual event, and I thank them for this invitation to come and speak. I am always honored and consider it a privilege
when invited to speak anywhere. I also realize that I stand on the shoulders of many who paved the way for me to serve and to stand before you today. I think about folks, like my husband, Braxton Foushee, who was the first Black alderman in Hill-Carrboro, thank you, Mayor Stiles, as well as a pivotal figure in the civil rights movement. I believe in giving people their flowers while they are able to enjoy them. My husband doesn't do this for recognition, he never did. He did it because he saw a need, and he just stepped in. People are leaving this world, they're dying. And I believe that it is more important than ever to love and appreciate each other while there is still breath in our bodies. Now, let's pop right into my comments for the afternoon. And after Ms. Hodge extended the invitation to me, 4 words immediately came to my mind: the urgency of now. I thought about important work that is being done in this community and how people lend their voices and their bodies to causes that impact humanity. As I thought a little more, hope for the future came next. Hope is keeping an optimistic state of mind, no matter the circumstances. Dr. King spoke about the urgency of now and hope for the future in some of his most famous quotes. Please join me as I go back in time to remember these famous words and connect the dots with our current state of affairs. On August 28, 1963, at the Lincoln Memorial on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., Dr. King said, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for positive and vigorous action. The phrase fierce urgency of now is as bold as it is prophetic. It was a call to action back in the 1960s and also still a call to action for today. We are a nation of diverse people, so we cannot deny the reality of white supremacy, Jim Crow era thinking, and racism in our communities. The fierce urgency of now is also a call to acknowledge this truth. There is no justice without truth. We must be intentional and dedicated in dismantling the sickness of racism that continues to cause so much suffering and heartache in communities of color. Dr. King also pointed out that faith, hope, and charity are the values that will lead us to appreciate and value diversity and foster a sense of belonging. He also stated that there comes a time, and I love this, there comes a time when we must take a position that is not safe, not political, not popular, but a position that is taken because it is the right thing to do. Racism is baked into the template of this country in a way that has not been able to be erased. There is an infinite list for racism, as well as people in high places who are content with continuing to carry the white supremacist legacy forward into the future. Folks co-sign racism when they sit in silence and don't say something, and take action when they see something. Our current moment is still based on the systems of race, wealth, and/or inherited rank or privilege. Our nation's founding continues to shape modern America as we know it today. We can't detach the past from the present And if some of us suffer at the hands of oppression, all of us suffer. In a Washington, D.C. address in February 1968, Dr. King spoke these words: "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." He was assassinated just 2 months later in Memphis. These words echo across the decades. They endure as one of the most positive messages of the great civil rights leader's legacy. That the challenges that weigh all of us down from day to day should never dissuade us from imagining a better, more just, and more love-filled future. Dr. King believed that this feeling of hope could last forever, and the impact of his belief continues to reverberate decades after his death. We endure many disappointments in our lifetimes, but we maintain hope by accepting the setbacks as part of our journey to progress. Hope is also sitting in this room today in the form of our young people. They are the voices and leaders for the future. The world is waiting for your greatness. I sometimes wonder if the needle of our society has moved much in the last 50 years. I think back to a conversation my husband and I had. I'm going off script now, so tell them what's going to happen. So a conversation me and my husband had a while ago, I think. And it hurt me to hear him say that basically he didn't really feel like much of what he did mattered. Just looking at the current state of affairs and knowing, some of you in here know better than me, about the civil rights movement in Chapel Hill in the 60s and the role Braxton played and some of the rest of you. And so to hear him say that, it went straight to the core, and I just wanted to put that in. Has it been like a false sense of progress? Do we today believe that we are wiser and making more progress than those who went before us? We have studied, and kind of examined what their fears were, their downfalls, and their hopes for the future. And I think we all have confidence that we can do better. But the reality is that the systems that dogged our ancestors chain us too. And so maybe we need a renaissance of sorts, a new jack swing do-over with our fist in the air, more pressing, more pushing. I am hearing more and more often that it is time out for talking and we need to take more action. Dr. King's message, his vision, his voice is still so relevant for all of us today. But is yesterday still today? It sure feels like it a lot of the time. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Our communities, states, and nation are in a crisis of truth and a racial crisis. These crises continue to be threats to the well-being of communities of color. We must get back to engaging in ways that honor the dignity, respect, and integrity of human beings. In the busyness of this life, I try to tell myself two things every day. One, I am enough. Two, rest is a form of resistance. We have to rest to be fully present in the work. And I am authentically enough, no matter what the situation is. I would like to close with the words that Dr. King spoke after his historic march from Selma to Montgomery on March 25th, 1965, on the steps of the state capitol in Montgomery, Alabama. How long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. How long? Not long. You shall reap what you sow. How long? Not long, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Oh, wow. I'm just so excited up here. Again, Thank you for this opportunity, young people. I appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation. Keep shining, keep working. Your voices matter, you matter. And let's continue to march on until these victories are won.
Thank you, Barbara. That was excellent. So, we have had some excellent speakers. I feel like every year we're so fortunate to have so many great guest speakers here. And our youth groups worked really hard on this, as Barbara said. And I can't thank them enough for all their hard work on this. I'm really fortunate I get to work with them to help implement this event for the town of Carrboro. And last but not least, we have a really special guest speaker. We have Nevaeh Hodge. She's been amazing helping work with this event, along with all our other youth council members, YAB and NAACP Youth Council. And just want to give her a round of applause and welcome her up here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nevaeh Hodge, and I'm the co-president of the NAACP Youth Council, a member of the Youth Advisory Board, and a member of the Carrboro Youth Council, who all co-sponsored this event. Today, we have gathered to commemorate Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was a man who believed in change and saw what the future could be. He made many accomplishments, such as the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act in 1965, even though many people doubted him. Without his vision and commitment to civil rights, African Americans would not have had the opportunities that we have today. He had a dream that we would eliminate negativity and racism and embrace everyone with kindness. In his famous I Have a Dream speech, he said, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out its true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." Since then, we have made a lot of progress towards that goal. Remember, although we made improvement, we still have not yet solved the issue of racism that is still very present in our society. Everyone here should continue to fight for the injustices they see, because that is what Dr. King would have wanted. In the spirit of this celebration, we should remember to be devoted to continuing Dr. King's legacy, not just today, but every day. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Nevaeh. That was great. So one of the things that when we were working with the youth groups, we asked them every year, so how's this event going to go this year? What actual elements should we incorporate? What kind of players do we want? How are we going to have this program set up? And one of the things they did this year in particular is they wanted to, for the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., ask friends, family, anyone you could find, what is your dream when thinking about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? So we've got some videos they had created on their own, which was amazing, and submitted them to us, and one of our youth council members helped put them together. Thank you. And we are going to watch that now to conclude this event.
My dream is to have good health and to treat others the way that I would like to be treated.
My dream is world peace.
My dream is to become a pilot.
My dream is to be president of the United States. I would say my dream is for everyone to be happy. Alright, I would say my dream is to represent a culture of people and like different demographics and help them to see themselves, because not a lot of people get that chance. What is your dream? To be an artist. My dream is to be a clinical psychologist. My dream is to be happy and successful. Hello, I'm Naya Hamlet, superintendent of traffic and my dream is for the students of Hill-Carrboro City Schools and how it's connected to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. We are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. That reminds me of our core value in our district of social justice action. He also said, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That reminds me of our core values of wellness and the competencies outlined in our CACCS portrait of a graduate. So what I want to leave you with is an excerpt from a letter that I wrote to our school community in our strategic plan. A phrase we are using more often, and you'll continue to hear, is the priority of elevating and expanding a CHCCS culture of care. When we focus on safety and wellness for all, we are also closing equity and opportunity gaps as we focus on providing safe spaces in our school buildings, providing wider access to mental health professionals, and exploring ways to decrease the academic pressure cooker for our students. Our students can still achieve at the highest levels without forfeiting their general well-being. And the more rapidly we ingrain that in our district culture, the more readily our young people will find school as a source of their highest aspirations. That is my dream for you. I have a dream that each and every student in Hill-Carrboro City Schools feels valued and affirmed, and that our critical consciousness helps us to come together to realize our core values of joy, wellness, engagement, social justice action, and collective efficacy. So thank you for listening, and I hope that you will be a part of making that dream real for each of our students.
Yeah, let's give a round of applause for all our youth groups today and speakers. Thanks for everyone for attending today. Thanks to all our speakers, our youth groups. Don't forget to check out some of the artwork from our youth groups over here from Carrboro High on your way out. We also have some information on Black History Month, some upcoming events. And if you haven't signed our little tabloid banner back here for I Have a Dream, Write Your Dream, please do. Thanks again for coming, and enjoy your day on a service for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Have a great weekend, all right?